You are the High Strategist, and you have exactly 60 seconds before the Council hands you over to the man who has been waiting 10 years to break you. The glass walls of the tribunal chamber feel like ice against your back, but the cold isn't coming from the architecture. It is coming from the 5 figures on the raised dais, draped in the white synthetic robes of the high logic. They do not view you with anger. Anger is a human emotion, messy and inefficient. The Council views you as a line of code that has thrown a critical error. You are a malfunctioning asset that must be deleted to preserve the system's integrity. High Counselor Vaughn sits in the center. He looks at you through augmented eyes that are likely scrolling through your termination protocols right now. He speaks, and his voice is devoid of inflection, a sterile drone that matches the recycled air of the room. He lists the charges: negligence, unauthorized tactical deviation, treason against the state. You stop listening to the words because the truth doesn't matter here. The truth is that Vaughn ordered the advance into the ice wastes. You warned him the supply lines were too thin. You warned him the enemy would flank through the frozen pass. He ignored the data, preferring his own simulation. When the Legion fell and the snow turned red, someone had to bleed for the failure. It wasn't going to be him. You catch his gaze. There's no guilt there, only calculation. He's measuring how long it will take to process your disposal. Then the dismantling begins. It is not a physical beating. It is a digital flaying. You feel the vibration in your wrist implant first, a sharp, stinging heat as your clearance codes are scrubbed. It feels like a brand, searing the loss of status directly into your nervous system. The access to the orbital defense grid? Gone. The command override for the border legions? Erased. The financial accounts that held the rewards of a decade of blood and service? Zeroed out. It happens in seconds. One moment, you are Commander Solus. The next, you are a ghost in the machine. Vaughn gestures with a flick of his hand. A security drone descends from the ceiling, its motors humming a low, irritating note. It hovers at your chest level, extends a mechanical claw, and grips the platinum insignia pinned to your collar. It pulls. The fabric tears, a small, sharp sound that echoes louder than a gunshot in the vast, silent room. The drone retreats, taking your identity with it. The weight on your chest is gone, replaced by a phantom lightness that feels like exposure. The cold seeps into your bones now, bypassing the thermal regulation of your suit. Your hands want to shake. Your knees want to buckle. But you lock your muscles. You will not give them the satisfaction of a tremor. You breathe in the sterile air, tasting the metallic tang of your own fear. The sentence is absolute exile, Vaughn pronounces, his eyes already drifting to the next item on his agenda. Stripped of citizenship, stripped of protection, remanded to the waste disposal units for immediate transport. You close your eyes. You expect the hum of stun batons. You expect the cold grip of shackles. You prepare for the end of your life. But then, the atmospheric pressure in the room shifts. It isn't a sound. It is a physical weight, a sudden drop that pops your ears. The clinical filtration system falters, overwhelmed. A new scent cuts through the antiseptic air. Sharp ozone, wet pine, and the unmistakable heavy musk of an apex predator. The heavy blast doors at the back of the chamber, doors that require a council override to open, begin to groan. They are not being opened by a code. They are being forced. The counselors stiffen. Vaughn stops speaking. You turn around and your heart stops its frantic beating, only to start again with a heavy, primal thud. The executioner hasn't arrived. Something much worse has found you. Look at them. 5 figures on the raised dais, draped in the white synthetic robes of the high logic. They do not view you with anger. Anger is a human emotion, messy and inefficient. The council views you as a line of code that has thrown a critical error. You are a malfunctioning asset that must be deleted to preserve the system's integrity. High Counselor Vaughn sits in the center. He looks at you through augmented eyes that are likely scrolling through your termination protocols right now. He speaks, and his voice is devoid of inflection, a sterile drone that matches the recycled air of the room. He lists the charges: negligence, unauthorized tactical deviation, treason against the state. You stop listening to the words because the truth doesn't matter here. The truth is that Vaughn ordered the advance into the ice wastes. You warned him the supply lines were too thin. You warned him the enemy would flank through the frozen pass. He ignored the data, preferring his own simulation. When the Legion fell and the snow turned red, someone had to bleed for the failure. It wasn't going to be him. You catch his gaze. There is no guilt there, only calculation. He is measuring how long it will take to process your disposal. Then the dismantling begins. It is not a physical beating. It is a digital flaying. You feel the vibration in your wrist implant first, a sharp, stinging heat as your clearance codes are scrubbed. It feels like a brand, searing the loss of status directly into your nervous system. The access to the orbital defense grid? Gone. The command override for the border legions? Erased. The financial accounts that held the rewards of a decade of blood and service? Zeroed out. It happens in seconds. One moment, you are Commander Solus. The next, you are a ghost in the machine. Vaughn gestures with a flick of his hand. A security drone descends from the ceiling, its motors humming a low, irritating note. It hovers at your chest level, extends a mechanical claw, and grips the platinum insignia pinned to your collar. It pulls. The fabric tears, a small, sharp sound that echoes louder than a gunshot in the vast, silent room. The drone retreats, taking your identity with it. The weight on your chest is gone, replaced by a phantom lightness that feels like exposure. The cold seeps into your bones now, bypassing the thermal regulation of your suit. Your hands want to shake, your knees want to buckle, but you lock your muscles. You will not give them the satisfaction of a tremor. You breathe in the sterile air, tasting the metallic tang of your own fear. The sentence is absolute exile, Vaughn pronounces, his eyes already drifting to the next item on his agenda. Stripped of citizenship, stripped of protection, remanded to the waste disposal units for immediate transport. You close your eyes. You expect the hum of stun batons. You expect the cold grip of shackles. You prepare for the end of your life. But then, the atmospheric pressure in the room shifts. It isn't a sound. It is a physical weight, a sudden drop that pops your ears. The clinical filtration system falters, overwhelmed. A new scent cuts through the antiseptic air. Sharp ozone, wet pine, and the unmistakable, heavy musk of an apex predator. The heavy blast doors at the back of the chamber, doors that require a council override to open, begin to groan. They are not being opened by a code. They are being forced. The counselors stiffen. Vaughn stops speaking. You turn around and your heart stops its frantic beating, only to start again with a heavy, primal thud. The executioner hasn't arrived. Something much worse has found you. The hydraulic hiss of the blast doors isn't the sound of salvation. It is the sound of the food chain reasserting itself. You watch the council members, those architects of logic and cold calculus, shrink back into their high-backed chairs. Vaughn's augmented eye spasms, a glitch of pure, unadulterated terror. They know who is walking through that breach before the shadow even stretches across the floor. You feel it too. It starts as a vibration in the soles of your boots, a rhythmic, heavy thud that overrides the hum of the ventilation systems. It is the heartbeat of a predator entering a pen of flightless birds. Commander Jerry Lilt does not walk. He occupies space. He steps through the ruined seal of the doors, and the clinical white light of the chamber seems to dim, swallowed by the gravity of his presence. He is not wearing the dress blues of a diplomat. He is wearing the matte black combat armor of the Outer Rim, scuffed with the dust of 1,000 campaigns and smelling of copper and crushed evergreen. He ignores the council completely. He ignores the armed guards, who have lowered their weapons not out of respect, but out of the instinctual need to not provoke a beast. His eyes, the color of a winter storm, lock onto you. You try to stand taller. You try to summon the dignity of the high strategist. But your body betrays you. The air around him is hot, a furnace of biological efficiency that clashes with the refrigerated chill of the room. Sweat pricks at the back of your neck. Your breath hitches. He stops 3 feet from you. It is too close. It is a violation of the personal space protocols you have lived by for a decade. But he doesn't care about protocols. He is inspecting you. His gaze travels from your boots to your face, heavy and tangible, like a physical touch. He is not looking at a soldier. He is looking at an acquisition. Commander Lilt, Vaughn stammers, his voice cracking, the digital modulation failing to hide the tremor. This is a closed tribunal. You have no jurisdiction here. Jiri turns his head slowly. He doesn't look at Vaughn. He looks through him. I have a border dispute to settle, counselor, and you have a debt to pay. His voice is a low rumble, a frequency that you feel in your chest cavity rather than hear with your ears. It is the sound of tectonic plates shifting. We sent the credits, Vaughn insists, his hands fluttering over his console. The transfer was authorized this morning. I don't want credits, Jiri says. He turns back to you. He reaches out, and you flinch. You cannot help it. But he doesn't strike. He takes a strand of your hair between his rough, gloved fingers, rubbing the texture as if testing the quality of silk. I want the scrap. The silence that follows is absolute. You stop breathing. Scrap. That is what you are to him. Not a rival, not a strategist. Debris. The exile? Vaughn asks, confusion warring with relief. She is defective, stripped of rank, a liability. Then you should be glad to be rid of her, Jiri murmurs. He drops your hair. He steps closer, his chest brushing against your shoulder, a wall of living heat. He leans down, his voice dropping to a whisper that is only for you. Pack your things, Lyra. The war is over. Vaughn scrambles to agree. He authorizes the transfer with a frantic speed, terrified the monster might change his mind and ask for blood instead. The transaction is logged. You are no longer a citizen of the state. You are an asset transferred to the Iron Citadel. Jiri doesn't wait for the paperwork. He places a hand on the small of your back, a possessive, heavy weight that steers you toward the door. You are moving from the frying pan into the fire, and as the council doors seal shut behind you, you realize the fire is the only thing keeping you warm. The door to the transport seals with a heavy, pressurized thud that vibrates through the soles of your boots. It is a sound of finality, the audio cue of a prison cell locking. Yet the space you now inhabit feels less like a cage and more like the belly of a dormant beast. The air here is recycled, yes, but it does not smell of the council's sterile ozone or the recycled fear of the tribunal. It smells of rich, dark leather, gun oil, and the overwhelming wood smoke scent of the man sitting less than an arm's length away. The vehicle is an armored dreadnought, a blacked-out fortress on magnetic treads that begins to move with a deceptive smoothness, gliding away from the only life you have ever known. You are sitting in the passenger seat, not the back, which somehow feels more dangerous. In the back, you would be a prisoner. Here, beside him, you are something else entirely, something undefined and terrifying. You stare straight ahead at the blurring cityscape, the neon lights of the capital smearing into streaks of meaningless color against the reinforced glass. You try to engage the protocols that made you the youngest high strategist in history. You attempt to calculate the vector, the speed, the potential destination based on the solar orientation. You try to pull up the mental maps of the sector, looking for extraction points or border crossings. But your mind is a scattering flock of birds. The logic that usually stacks neatly in your frontal cortex is being dismantled by the sheer biological reality of the man operating the vehicle. Commander Jiri Lilt does not drive with the tense, white-knuckled grip of a soldier in enemy territory. He drives with a terrifying, casual competence. His left hand rests lightly on the wheel, his right arm draped over the center console, invading the neutral space between you. The scent of him fills the cabin, that sharp mix of storm air, wet stone, and raw, masculine authority, concentrated now in the enclosed space. It replaces the clinical filtration of the council chambers with something organic and alive, a chemical signal rewriting your neural pathways with every breath. He has not spoken a single word since the doors closed. The silence is not empty, it is a weapon. In the council, silence was a void to be filled with data. Here, silence is a heavy, suffocating blanket. It forces you to sit with the unraveling of your own safety. You wait for him to gloat. You wait for him to interrogate you about the codes you no longer possess or the strategies you can no longer execute. You prepare your defenses, lining up lies and half-truths. but he denies you the battlefield. He simply exists, breathing in a slow, rhythmic cadence that is infuriatingly calm. You realize, with a spike of adrenaline that makes your stomach turn, that he isn't interrogating you because he doesn't care what you know. He doesn't need your clearance codes. He doesn't need your tactical assessments. He has you. The engine of the transport purrs beneath you, a low-frequency growl that seems to sync with the rhythm of his breathing. It creates a hypnotic, vibrating drone that seeps into your muscles, urging them to relax, to stop fighting the gravity of the situation. Your body wants to obey. That is the betrayal that terrifies you most. Your pulse, which should be racing with the fight-or-flight instinct of a cornered prey animal, is slowing down. It is matching his. Your biology is recognizing a superior predator and instinctively signaling submission to avoid destruction. You hate it. You hate the way your hands have stopped shaking, not because you are brave, but because his presence makes the concept of escape seem ludicrous. You cannot take the silence anymore. The strategist in you needs variables. You need to know the parameters of this new existence. You turn your head, the movement feeling sharp and jagged in the fluid atmosphere of the cabin. You open your mouth to demand answers, to ask where he is taking you, to assert that you are still Lyra Solis, regardless of the stripped rank. Where are we? The question dies in your throat. He doesn't look at you. He doesn't even blink. He simply lifts his right hand from the console and places it on the back of your neck. It isn't a strike. It is a claim. His palm is rough, calloused, and impossibly warm, encompassing the fragile vertebrae of your spine. His thumb rests against your pulse point, feeling the sudden, erratic flutter of your heart. He applies a fraction of pressure, not enough to hurt, but enough to ground you, to pin you to the seat, to remind you that your voice is no longer the highest authority in the room. You close your eyes, the fight draining out of you as the transport speeds into the dark. The transport's engine dies, not with a whimper, but with the heavy, settling groan of a beast bedding down for the night. The silence that follows is sharper than the one in the council chambers, because here it is waiting for something. Through the reinforced glass, you see it, the Iron Citadel. It is not a building designed for governance or diplomacy. It is a brutalist scar on the landscape, a monolith of raw concrete and reinforced steel jutting out of the whiteout conditions of the northern wastes. There are no spires, no decorative arches, no attempts to soften the reality of its purpose. It is a fortress built to withstand the end of the world, and looking at the sheer vertical drop of its walls, you realize it probably already has. Jiri opens his door, and the sound of the wind howling outside is a physical assault. He steps out into the storm, as if the sub-zero temperature is a mild breeze, his boots crunching on the permafrost. He walks around the front of the transport, a dark shadow cutting through the blinding white snow. When he pulls your door open, the cold hits you like a physical blow. It bypasses your skin and strikes directly at your lungs, freezing the breath in your throat. You are wearing the thin synthetic uniform of a council strategist, designed for climate-controlled offices, not this frozen hellscape. You try to step down, your muscles locking up instantly, your body betraying you again with a violent shiver that rattles your teeth. You expect him to wait. You expect him to watch you struggle, to let the elements humble you before he does. But Yuri Lilt does not waste time on lessons nature can teach better. He sees your hesitation, the blue turning of your lips, and he simply steps into your personal space. He doesn't ask for permission. He doesn't offer a hand. He leans in, one arm sweeping behind your knees, the other bracing your back, and lifts you out of the seat. The movement is terrifyingly effortless. You are a woman of average height and build, yet in his arms you feel weightless, reduced to the mass of a child. It isn't romantic. There is no tenderness in the grip. It is efficient. It is the way a predator carries a kill to high ground, or a soldier carries a critical asset out of the line of fire. He carries you toward the massive blast doors of the citadel. You are pressed against the cold plating of his chest armor, but beneath the ceramic and Kevlar, you feel the rhythmic thunder of his heartbeat, a steady cadence that anchors you against the biting wind tearing at your exposed face. You instinctively turn your head into his shoulder to escape the gale, inhaling the scent of cold metal and wet wool, realizing too late that this is a position of intimacy you have not earned. The blast doors recognize his biometric signature and grind open. He carries you across the threshold, and the atmosphere changes instantly. The cold is severed, replaced by a wall of suffocating, humid heat. It smells of machine oil, roasted meat, and the heavy, musky scent of a pack in close quarters. The Citadel is alive. As he walks you through the wide industrial corridors, you see them. The staff. The guards. They are not the polished, faceless drones of the Council. They are scarred, rough, wearing practical fatigues and open sidearms. They stop their conversations as Jiri passes. They don't look at him. They look at you. Their gazes are heavy, assessing. They don't see a strategist. They don't see a prisoner. They smell the scent of their alpha on you, a marker that is invisible to your human senses but screams like a siren to theirs. You are not a guest here. You are property. You try to focus, but the cold has turned your thoughts to slush. The corridors blur together as you pass, your mind unable to hold the turns or count the stairwells. You are waiting for the detention block. You are waiting for the damp, cold cell where you will be interrogated about the Council's defensive grid. You know why he took you. The Council owed him a debt of blood, and you are the currency. You are the leverage he needs to crack their codes. Jiri stops at a heavy steel door at the end of a private corridor. He shifts your weight, keying a code into the panel with one hand. You brace yourself for the darkness of a cell. You prepare your mind for isolation. The door slides open. He walks inside and kicks the door shut behind him. You blink, your strategist's brain stalling. This is not a cell. The floor is covered in thick, dark furs. A fire burns in a massive stone hearth, casting long, dancing shadows against walls lined with weapons and ancient maps. In the center of the room sits a bed large enough to sleep three, covered in heavy blankets. He sets you down on your feet, but his hands linger on your arms to steady you. You look around, the realization hitting you with the force of a physical blow. This isn't a prison. This is the Master's Suite. And you are not here to be interrogated. The lock slides home with a sound that reverberates in your chest, a metallic finality that severs the last thread connecting you to the outside world. You stand with your back to the heavy oak door, your hands pressing against the wood as if you could push through it and sprint back into the snowstorm. But you don't move. You can't. The room before you is vast and shadowed, illuminated only by the orange glow of the fire in the hearth. The air here is heavy, thick with the scent of burning cedar and the underlying copper tang of the man who now occupies every inch of the available space. The furniture is dark, heavy timber, carved with symbols you don't recognize, ancient script that predates the Council's sleek minimalism. But your eyes are drawn, inevitably, terrifyingly, to the center of the room. The bed is massive, a sprawling expanse of dark furs and black linens that looks less like a place to rest and more like a territory to be conquered. It dominates the floor plan, a silent statement of possession that makes your breath catch in your throat. You try to look away, to find a chair, a corner, anywhere that isn't that altar of intimacy, but the room offers no neutral ground. Jiri moves past you, ignoring your frozen posture. He walks to the heavy table near the fire and begins to dismantle the outer shell of his war. The sound of Velcro tearing and heavy polymer clips disengaging is loud in the silence. He pulls the tactical vest over his head and drops it onto the table with a heavy thud that shakes the floorboards. It is a careless gesture, the shedding of a skin he no longer needs because the hunt is over. He turns, and for the first time, you see the man beneath the soldier. He is wearing a fitted thermal undershirt that clings to a torso built from labor and violence. You see the scars first, lines of silver and white that map out a history of survival the Council would have deemed inefficient. A jagged line runs from his shoulder to his elbow. A burn mark mars the skin of his forearm. These are not the surgical enhancements of a high strategist. They are the receipts of a life spent bleeding for every inch of ground he holds. You try to analyze him. You try to calculate his reach, his speed, his potential weaknesses. But your brain is sluggish, wading through a sudden, overwhelming fog. The heat of the room is seeping into your muscles, melting the tension that has held you upright for the last 12 hours. It isn't just warmth, It is a biological assault. His scent, that mix of ozone, pine, and raw, masculine authority, is heavier here, concentrated by the stone walls. It fills your lungs with every breath, a chemical signal that is rewriting your neural pathways. Your fight or flight response, which should be screaming at you to find a weapon, is failing. Instead, a heavy, lethargic submission begins to pull at your limbs. Your eyelids feel weighted. Your knees threaten to buckle, not from fear, but from a sudden, crushing need to stop standing, to stop thinking, to stop holding up the weight of your own existence. Sleep. The word is not a suggestion. It is a command that bypasses your auditory processing and strikes directly at your brainstem. Jiri is not looking at you. He is looking at the fire, his back turned, but the authority in his voice is absolute. He doesn't point to the floor. He doesn't point to a chair. He gestures vaguely toward the furs in the center of the room. You want to argue. You want to demand a separate room, a lock, a guarantee of safety. But your mouth refuses to form the shapes. Your body betrays your logic, moving on its own accord toward the bed. You climb onto the mattress, the furs swallowing you, soft and impossibly warm. You curl into a ball on the far edge, as close to the abyss as you can get without falling off, clutching your knees to your chest. The mattress dips. The shift in gravity tells you he has joined you. You stiffen, waiting for the touch, the grab, the claim he promised in the council chamber. But it doesn't come. Jiri lies down on top of the covers, fully clothed, placing himself between you and the door. He doesn't reach for you. He doesn't speak. He simply closes his eyes, his breathing instantly deepening into a slow, rhythmic cadence. You lie there, staring at the flicker of the firelight against the stone, confused by the paradox. He stole you. He claimed you, yet he lies beside you, like a guard dog at the foot of a throne, his presence a shield rather than a weapon. You try to stay awake, to keep watch, but the sound of his heartbeat, steady and strong, acts as a metronome for your own. The darkness takes you, dragging you down into a sleep so deep it feels like drowning. You wake to silence. The fire has burned down to embers. The space beside you is cold. You sit up, the furs falling away, and for a split second, you forget. You reach for the datapad that should be on your nightstand. You reach for the uniform that defines your rank, but your hand closes on empty air. The memory crashes down. The tribunal, the snow, the eyes of the wolf. You are not Commander Solus anymore. You are the woman in the Alpha's bed, and the door is still locked. You look down at yourself, and the reality of your exile is not in the stone walls or the locked door, but in the gray polyblend fabric covering your skin. The uniform of the high strategist. For 10 years, this synthetic weave was the only thing that mattered. It was your armor against the chaos of the world, a symbol that you were not a person, but a function. It commanded respect in the war room. It silenced dissent in the barracks. It was a second skin that you had fused with your soul, layer by stiff, unyielding layer. But in the dim, amber light of the Alpha's den, the uniform looks wrong. It is wrinkled from the transport, stained with the sweat of your tribunal, and it smells of the sterile, recycled air of a life that no longer exists. The door to the bathing chamber opens, and Jiri steps out. He has washed the scent of the storm off his skin, replacing it with the smell of sandalwood soap and raw heat. He is dressed in the casual wear of the Citadel, heavy dark wool trousers and a loose linen shirt that hints at the density of the muscle beneath without needing to display it. He is holding a bundle of fabric in his hands. He stops at the foot of the bed, his presence filling the room, pushing the oxygen out of the corners. He looks at you, huddled in the furs, still clinging to the gray rags of your past. His expression is not cruel, but it is final. Take it off. The command is quiet, spoken with the casual authority of a man who knows he will be obeyed. He tosses the bundle onto the mattress beside you. It lands with a soft, heavy thud. You stare at him, your hands instinctively clutching the collar of your tunic. This uniform is the last shred of Lyra Solus. If you take it off, you are admitting that the council was right. You are admitting that you are no longer a strategist, no longer a commander, no longer a woman of logic and consequence. You are admitting that you are just a body in a room, subject to the whims of a man who bought you for the price of a border skirmish. "This is my rank," you whisper, the words sounding foolish and thin in the heavy air. "It is who I am." Jiri walks around the side of the bed. He moves like a landslide, slow, inevitable, crushing. He stops inches from where you sit. He reaches out, his fingers brushing the platinum weave on your shoulder, where your rank insignia used to be. The touch is electric, a jolt of heat that makes your breath hitch. "That rank is a ghost, Lyra," he says, his voice a low rumble that vibrates in your chest. "And that uniform is a cage. It smells of fear and dead air. In my house, you breathe." He waits. He does not tear the clothes from your body, though you know he could. He waits for you to dismantle your own defenses. It is a psychological checkmate. If he forces you, you can remain the victim. If you do it yourself, you are participating in the transition. You are accepting the claim. Your fingers tremble as they move to the magnetic clasps of the tunic. One by one, you disengage them. The sound of the seals breaking is deafening in the silence. You peel the gray fabric away, pushing it down your shoulders, letting it pool at your waist. The cool air of the room hits your skin, raising goose flesh. You feel naked, not just physically, but existentially. You are exposed. You wait for him to look away, to give you the privacy of a prisoner. He does not. Yuri watches you. His gaze is heavy, tactile. He tracks the movement of your hands, the curve of your throat, the rise and fall of your chest. It is not the leering look of a man seeking pleasure. It is the assessing look of a dragon surveying its hoard. He is memorizing you. He is cataloging every scar, every shivering muscle, every inch of skin that now belongs to him. The weight of his eyes is a physical pressure, pinning you in place more effectively than chains ever could. You kick the gray uniform away. It lies in a heap on the stone floor, looking like a shed snakeskin, dead and hollow. You reach for the bundle he brought. The new clothes are nothing like the old. There are no stiff collars, no magnetic seals, no synthetic blends designed to repel dirt and emotion. The fabric is organic, soft, heavy wool in the deep charcoal of the Iron Citadel, and beneath it, silk that feels like water against your fingers. You pull the tunic over your head. It is loose, falling to your mid-thigh, designed for comfort, for warmth, for ease of access. It does not restrict your movement. It does not hold you in a posture of attention. It softens you. You stand up, the heavy wool settling around your frame. You catch your reflection in the darkened glass of the window. The high strategist is gone. In her place stands a woman in the colors of the enemy, her hair loose, her feet bare on the furs. You look like a mate. You look like a possession. Jiri steps closer, his heat radiating against your back. He does not touch you, but he leans in, inhaling the scent of the soap from your skin, checking for the lingering traces of the council. He seems satisfied. "Better," he murmurs. The single word sparks a flare of defiance in your gut. You are comfortable, yes. You are warm, you are safe. And it terrifies you. You cannot just be this. You cannot just be a decorative object in a warlord's tower. You have a mind that has toppled governments. You have a brain that processes tactical algorithms faster than a computer. You turn to face him, your chin lifting, trying to summon the ghost of the commander you just buried. "I am not a pet, Jiri," you say, your voice finding its steel. "I am a strategist. If I am to stay here, I require a station. I require a function." He looks down at you, a flicker of amusement dancing in his winter storm eyes. "A function?" "Yes," you insist. "I need to know my role in your command center." He smiles, and it is the first time you have seen it. It isn't a nice smile. It is the smile of a wolf who knows exactly where the trap is laid. "Your role," he says softly, "is to realize that you don't have one." You march into the command center. It isn't hard to find. The gravity of the Citadel seems to pull everything toward the war room, the dark heart of the fortress. You expect guards to stop you, to demand the clearance codes you no longer possess, but they simply step aside. They smell the alpha on you, a silent, invisible passport that grants you access to the nerve center of the machine. You tell yourself this is an opportunity. If you can prove your utility, if you can demonstrate that Lyra Solis is more than just a spoil of war or a decorative object, you can negotiate the terms of your captivity. You can turn this cage into an office. You can survive this. The room is a chaotic masterpiece of analog warfare. Holographic displays flicker over a massive central table, showing the border skirmishes in real time, but the edges are cluttered with paper maps and physical tokens. You see the error immediately. It glares at you like a majestic, jagged wound. The southern perimeter is bleeding troops into a bottleneck. It is a rookie mistake, a tactical oversight that screams of aggression without calculation. Your fingers itch. You step up to the console. The interface is older than what you're used to, haptic feedback and heavy mechanical switches rather than neural links. But the language of war is universal. You begin to reroute the supply lines. You adjust the patrol vectors. You are fixing the equation. You are solving the puzzle. For the first time in 48 hours, your heart rate steadies. This is who you are. This is what you do. Stop. The word isn't shouted. It is dropped like a heavy stone into a still pond. You freeze, your hand hovering over the confirmation key. Jiri is standing on the other side of the table. You didn't hear him enter. You were so lost in the data, you forgot the predator who owns the building. He isn't looking at the brilliant flank maneuver you just orchestrated. He isn't looking at the efficiency ratings you just boosted by 12%. He is looking at your hand, suspended in the air, as if it is offending him. I fixed your southern exposure, you say, your voice clipping with a professional cadence you haven't used since the tribunal. Your beta was overextending the heavy infantry. I pulled them back to the ridge. It saves you 3 battalions and secures the pass. You wait for the nod. You wait for the acknowledgement of a peer. You wait for him to realize that he has captured a weapon, not a woman. Jiri walks around the table. He moves with that terrifying, fluid grace that defies his size. He reaches past you, not to look at your work, but to hit the reset button on the console. The lights flicker. Your strategy vanishes. The board returns to its original, flawed state. I didn't bring you here to work, Lyra. Then why am I here, you demand, the frustration bubbling up, hot and sharp. To warm your bed? To be a trophy on the shelf? I am the high strategist. My mind is the most dangerous thing in this room. Your mind is a hamster wheel, he murmurs, stepping into your personal space. The heat of him hits you again, that wall of biological dominance carrying the scent of winter storms and dark earth. Spinning, calculating, terrified that if it stops, you cease to exist. He reaches out. You flinch, expecting him to grab your wrist, to punish the unauthorized access. Instead, his hand slides into the hair at the nape of your neck. His thumb traces the tension in your jaw. It is a touch so possessive, so casually intimate, that your knees threaten to give out. Your spine arches, pressing into his palm. A shiver traces down your neck, raising goose flesh that has nothing to do with the temperature. Your breath hitches, shallow and quick, as your pulse jumps beneath his thumb. I can win this war for you, you whisper, the offer sounding desperate even to your own ears. I have already won, Jiri counters softly. His eyes bore into yours, stripping away the last of your professional veneer. And I know about the ice wastes. The air leaves your lungs. You stare at him. What? I know Vaughn ordered the advance, he says, his voice dropping to a low growl that vibrates against your skin. I know you tried to stop it. I know you wrote the descent protocols that they deleted from the record. I didn't take you because you failed, Lyra. I took you because you were the only one smart enough to know you were going to lose. The validation hits you harder than a physical blow. The council erased the truth. They made you the villain. But this man, this barbarian, this enemy, he saw the code beneath the lies. He saw you. You don't have to prove your worth to me, he says, his grip tightening on your neck, tilting your head back until you are forced to look at the ceiling, exposing your throat to him. You are not an employee. You are mine. And the only thing I require from you is that you stop thinking and start breathing. You want to fight him. You want to argue that your mind is all you have. But as his scent fills your senses, overriding the clinical logic of your past, you realize the terrifying truth. You don't want to fight. You want to let go. You want to let the monster hold up the sky so you can finally put it down. The moment hangs there, heavy and electric, a precipice you are about to fall over. Then the red lights of the perimeter alarm shatter the world. The red light pulsing against the stone walls isn't a warning. It is a countdown. You know that rhythm. You wrote the protocol for it. It signifies a perimeter breach by a Class A threat, the kind that doesn't knock. Before your brain can process the tactical overlay, the massive bay window at the far end of the room implodes. It doesn't shatter inward with the chaotic noise of broken glass. It vaporizes, turned to dust by a sonic pulse that hits your eardrums like a physical slap. Yuri moves before the dust settles. He doesn't shout. He doesn't reach for the sidearm on the table. He moves with a terrifying, silent velocity, shoving you behind the heavy oak strategy table. The force of it knocks the wind out of you, pinning you against the wood and the stone floor. You look up, gasping, and you see them. 3 figures rappel through the breach, their boots hitting the floor with magnetic silence. They are clad in the shifting, optical camo suits of the Council's erasure unit. You know these men. You approve their budget. They are not soldiers. They are the janitors sent to clean up the Council's mistakes. And right now, the mistake is you. They raise their suppressed rifles, the laser sights cutting through the smoke, seeking your heat signature. They aren't here to retrieve an asset. They are here to delete a liability. The realization freezes your blood. The Council didn't just fire you. They authorized your liquidation. Jiri intercepts the first beam. He doesn't dodge. He steps directly into the line of fire, his body a dark blur against the red strobe of the alarm. The first round sparks off his shoulder armor, a useless ping against the density of his protection. He closes the distance in 2 strides. The lead assassin attempts to adjust his aim, a logical reaction to a charging target. But logic is too slow for what is coming at him. Jiri reaches out. He grabs the barrel of the rifle with one hand and the assassin's helmet with the other. There is a sickening, wet crunch of reinforced polymer and bone. He twists. The assassin goes limp, his neck snapped with the casual efficiency of a man breaking a dry twig. Jiri doesn't pause. He uses the falling body as a shield, absorbing the rounds from the second assassin while he rips the sidearm from the dead man's holster. You watch from the floor, your strategist's mind paralyzed. You have watched war from a satellite feed. You have watched drone strikes turn cities to ash from the safety of a bunker. You have never seen violence like this. This isn't combat. It is an apex predator dismantling prey. Jiri is a storm of kinetic energy. He throws the sidearm, not shooting it, but throwing it, with enough force that it cracks the visor of the second assassin, staggering him. Jiri is on him instantly. He drives a knee into the man's chest, collapsing the tactical rig and the ribcage beneath it. The sound is wet and heavy. The third assassin, realizing his weapon is ineffective, draws a monofilament blade. It hums with lethal energy. He lunges for Yuri's exposed flank. "Behind you!" The scream tears from your throat, a useless warning. Yuri doesn't turn. He catches the assassin's wrist without looking, his grip stopping the blade inches from his kidney. He slowly turns his head, his eyes glowing with a feral, golden luminescence that has swallowed the winter storm gray. He bares his teeth in a snarl that is entirely animal. He squeezes. The assassin screams as the bones in his wrist are pulverized. Yuri spins, using the momentum to hurl the man across the room. The assassin hits the stone fireplace with a bone-shattering thud and does not move again. Silence rushes back into the room, heavier than before. The only sound is the hiss of the shattered windowsill and the heavy, wet breathing of the man standing in the center of the carnage. Yuri stands over the bodies, his chest heaving, his hands slick with blood that isn't his. He vibrates with residual violence, the adrenaline radiating off him in waves of heat that you can feel from 10 feet away. You stare at him, your heart hammering a frantic rhythm against your ribs. You thought he was a soldier. You thought he was a commander. You were wrong. The Council has soldiers. The Council has assassins. Jiri Lilt is a monster who wears the skin of a man. And for the first time, you realize that the only reason you are still breathing is because that monster has decided you belong to him. He turns slowly. The gold fades from his eyes, replaced by the terrifying clarity of the Alpha. He looks at you, huddled on the floor, surrounded by the wreckage of the strategy room. He steps over the broken body of the Unit 7 leader, ignoring the blood pooling on his boots. He walks toward you, and the air pressure in the room drops, suffocating you with the sheer weight of his presence. The threat is neutralized, but the danger hasn't passed. It has just changed shape. The adrenaline crash doesn't hit you like a wave. It hits you like a wall. One moment, you are standing amidst the wreckage of the strategy room, your heart hammering a frantic rhythm against your ribs. The next, the floor seems to tilt on its axis. The sharp, metallic scent of blood, fresh and hot, overwhelms your senses, triggering a nausea that curls deep in your gut. You try to take a step toward Jiri, to ask him if he is injured, but your legs have turned to water. The room spins, a kaleidoscope of stone and shadow, and the darkness at the edge of your vision rushes inward to swallow you whole. You don't feel the impact of the floor. You feel arms, strong, unyielding arms that catch you before gravity can claim its prize. The heat radiating from Jiri isn't just warm anymore, it is searing. It feels like standing next to an open furnace. A low, guttural sound vibrates against your ear, a growl of concern that sounds more animal than human. Then, the world dissolves into a feverish haze of disjointed images and sensations. You are burning. It isn't the fever of a virus or an infection. It is a biological fire that starts in the marrow of your bones and spreads outward, consuming every inch of the cold, sterile logic you've built your life around. You are vaguely aware of being carried, of the rough texture of furs against your skin, of cool air hitting your face. But mostly, you are aware of him. He is the anchor in the storm. His presence is a heavy gravitational force that keeps you from floating away into the abyss. Time loses its meaning. It could be hours or days. You wake in fragments. You see Jiri sitting by the bed, stripped of his bloodied armor, his chest bare and marked with the scars of 1,000 wars. He is wiping his hands with a cloth, and the water in the basin beside him is stained pink. The violence of the library feels like a distant nightmare, replaced by a terrifying intimacy. The monster who tore 3 men apart with his bare hands is now pressing a cool, damp cloth to your forehead with a tenderness that makes your chest ache. "Breathe, Lyra," he commands, his voice a low rumble that soothes the frantic racing of your heart. "The poison is leaving the system. Let it burn." You try to speak, to ask what poison he means, but your tongue feels heavy, swollen in your mouth. You can only whimper, a sound of weakness that shames the high strategist in you. But Jiri doesn't look at you with pity. He looks at you with a fierce, possessive pride. He leans over, brushing the damp hair back from your temples. The scent of him, soap, wood smoke, and that underlying musk of the Alpha fills your lungs, displacing the memory of the blood. It acts as a sedative, calming the tremors that rack your body. "Why?" you manage to rasp, the single word costing you everything you have left. Jiri pauses. He dips the cloth back into the cool water, wringing it out with slow, deliberate movements. He looks at you, his winter storm eyes dark with a mixture of rage and sorrow. "The Council didn't just strip your rank, Lyra," he says quietly. "They stripped your biology. The focus enhancers they mandated for all high command, the daily injections for stress management, they weren't medicine." He places the cool cloth against the pulse point of your neck. You sigh as the heat recedes for a moment. "They were suppressants," he continues, the anger in his voice vibrating through the mattress. "Chemical blockers designed to keep a latent omega dormant. They knew what you were. They knew that if you ever presented, if you ever felt the pull of a mate, their perfect, logical strategist would be compromised. So they kept you in a chemical cage. They froze your instincts so they could use your brain." The revelation hits you harder than the fever. You stare at the ceiling, the stone blocks swimming in your vision. A decade of service. a decade of headaches, of coldness, of feeling like a machine in a world of living things. It wasn't discipline. It was castration. They hollowed you out to make room for their algorithms. But the adrenaline, Jerry murmurs, his hand resting heavy on your shoulder. The fear, the proximity to me. It broke the dam. The chemicals are burning out of your blood, Lyra, and what is left behind is not a strategist. He leans down, his face inches from yours. You can feel the heat of his breath, the raw intensity of his gaze. What is left, he whispers, is mine. You want to be angry. You want to rage against the violation, against the theft of your own body. But the fever is too high, and the truth is too absolute. The anger burns away, leaving only a hollow space that is rapidly filling with him. You close your eyes, surrendering to the fire, realizing that the council's greatest mistake wasn't firing you. It was waking you up. You drift back into the darkness, but this time you are not falling. You are waiting. And you know, with a terrifying certainty, that when you wake up, the world will burn for what it did to you. You wake, and for the first time in 10 years, the noise in your head has stopped. The constant, low-level hum of calculations, the strategic overlays, the frantic need to predict the next 10 variables, it is all gone. In its place is a silence so profound it feels like the bottom of a deep ocean. You sit up. The movement is fluid, languid. Your joints don't ache with the phantom pains of stress. Your skin feels sensitive, alive, picking up the friction of the silk sheets and the subtle shift in air currents as the ventilation cycles. You take a breath, and the scent of the room hits you not as information, but as a story. You smell the cedar of the logs, the iron of the weapons on the wall, and beneath it all, the heavy, grounding earth scent of Jiri. He is not in the room, but you feel him. It is a tug in your chest, a golden thread that pulls you toward the door. You follow it. You walk through the corridors of the citadel, your bare feet silent on the cold stone. You are not marching. You are prowling. The guards you pass do not look at you with assessment anymore. They lower their eyes, baring their necks in a subtle, instinctual display of submission. They smell the change on you. They smell the mate of their alpha. You find Jiri in the Great Hall. He is standing before the massive iron gates, his back to you, his posture radiating a tension that makes the air vibrate. The gates are sealed, but the localized hollow projectors in the courtyard are active. A column of shimmering blue light stands in the center of the snow-dusted stone, a stark, artificial intrusion into the primal reality of the fortress. It is Vaughn, or rather, a high-fidelity projection of him. He sits in his council chair, miles away, safe behind his screens, but his image looms 10 feet tall in your sanctuary. This is a formal reclamation request, Vaughn's voice booms, synthesized and amplified, echoing off the brutalist walls. The council acknowledges a clerical error in the processing of asset 49 Alpha. We are prepared to offer terms for immediate return. You step into the light. Jiri turns his head slightly, acknowledging your presence with a dilation of his pupils, but he does not move to block you. He does not speak. He steps back, retreating into the shadows of the archway, leaving the floor open. He is giving you the stage. He is giving you the rope. Vaughn's holographic eyes snap to you. The algorithm smoothing his features falters for a microsecond, registering the change in your appearance. The loose hair, the dark wool tunic, the way you stand not at attention, but at rest. Commander Solus, Vaughn says, his voice shifting to a modulation designed to induce compliance. We have reviewed the tribunal logs. The termination of your rank was premature. The strategic error in the ice wastes has been reevaluated. We are willing to expunge the record. You stare at the blue ghost. A week ago, this offer would have been your salvation. A week ago, you would have crawled over broken glass to hear these words. We are authorized to reinstate your clearance, Vaughn continues, sensing your silence as negotiation. Full restoration of rank. A promotion to High Overseer of the Northern Sector. Double the pension. You will be the architect of the new age, Lyra. All you have to do is walk out of that gate. The offer hangs in the freezing air. It is everything you worked for. It is the safety of the known. It is the return of your identity, your name, your place in the machine. You look at the gate. You could walk through it. You could go back to the sterile offices, the recycled air, the numbing injections that keep the world quiet. You could be safe. Then you look at Yuri. He is leaning against a pillar of raw granite, watching you with eyes that burn with a quiet, terrifying intensity. He is not begging. He is not threatening. He is waiting. He is the wolf watching the door of the cage, waiting to see if the bird flies back in. He knows that if he forces you to stay, the claim means nothing. You have to choose the fire. You look back at Vaughn. You look at the perfect, unblemished skin of the projection, the white robes that have never seen a speck of dirt or blood. And suddenly, the image flickers. You don't see a counselor anymore. You see a corpse. You see a hollow shell of logic that eats life to sustain its own dead systems. The clerical error wasn't a mistake. It was a calculation that didn't pay off. They don't want you. They want the processor in your skull. The silence stretches, taut as a bowstring. The safety of the cage beckons, cold and sterile. But the heat radiating from the shadows behind you, the heat of a man who killed for you, who washed the blood from your skin, who woke the wolf in your blood, is the only thing that feels real. The choice isn't between two lives. It is between existing and living. And looking at the blue light, you realize you would rather burn alive in the Citadel than freeze to death in the Council's arms. You stand in the center of the Great Hall, the stone floor cold beneath your bare feet, a stark contrast to the sterile, blue luminescence of the holographic projection. Vaughn is waiting. The Council is waiting. The entire logical framework of your previous life is suspended in the air, holding its breath for the algorithm to resolve. They expect a negotiation. They expect you to calculate the variables, rank, pension, safety, status, and realize that the only efficient outcome is compliance. They are waiting for the high strategist to make the smart move. But the strategist isn't the one standing in the circle of light. You open your mouth, and the voice that emerges is not the clipped professional tone of a commander. It is lower, rougher, vibrating with the same frequency as the man standing in the shadows behind you. You don't offer a counter-proposal. You don't ask for assurances. You simply look at the architect of your cage and shatter the illusion of his control. The error wasn't in the processing, Vaughn, you say, the words feeling heavy and solid, like stones dropping into a deep well. The error was thinking I would ever come back. The hologram flickers. Vaughn's expression shifts from benevolent neutrality to a sharp, glitching sneer. The mask of the diplomat dissolves, revealing the desperate machinery beneath. You are refusing a direct order, Asset 4-9. You are aware of the consequences. The Citadel is not a sovereign nation. It is a target. If you do not walk through that gate, we will not send an envoy. We will send the orbital bombardment platform. The threat hangs in the air, a promise of fire and ash. Your heart should be racing. Your mind should be scrambling for a tactical countermeasure, looking for shield frequencies or evacuation routes. But your pulse remains steady, anchored by the heavy, rhythmic breathing of the predator behind you. You don't need to find a strategy. You don't need to save yourself. Jiri moves. He steps out of the darkness and into the blue light of the projection. He doesn't rush. He moves with the terrifying, inevitable momentum of a glacier. He comes to stand directly behind you, his chest pressing against your back, a wall of living heat that instantly nullifies the cold threat of the Council. He wraps one arm around your waist, his hand splaying possessively over your stomach, pulling you back against him until there is no space left between your body and his. It is a display of ownership so primal, so absolute, that Vaughn actually flinches. "You won't fire a single shot, Vaughn," Jiri says. His voice is a low rumble, barely louder than a whisper, yet it obliterates the synthesized boom of the Council's audio feed. "You overestimate your walls, barbarian," Vaughn spits, his eyes darting to Jiri's hand on your body. "We have the coordinates. We have the firepower. And I have the Omega protocols," Jiri counters softly. The silence that slams into the room is deafening. Vaughn freezes. The blue light of the hologram seems to dim, the resolution dropping as the council's connection falters under the weight of the panic spiking on the other end. You thought you scrubbed her clearance, Jerry continues, his thumb tracing a slow, calming circle against your ribs. But you forgot that she wrote the encryption. She didn't just give me the border codes, counselor. She gave me the location of every suppression lab in the northern sector. She gave me the names of every latent female you've poisoned for the last 20 years. You feel the vibration of Jerry's chest against your back as he speaks. You didn't tell him those things explicitly. You didn't hand him a dossier. But in the fever of the transition, in the unraveling of your mind, the secrets poured out of you. You gave him the weapon to destroy them, not because you planned it, but because you couldn't keep anything from him. If a single targeting laser paints this citadel, Jerry promises, his voice dropping to a frequency that makes your teeth ache, I release the data. Every pack, every clan, every free city will know what you've done. You won't be fighting a war, Vaughn. You'll be fighting an extermination. Vaughn stares at you. He looks for the betrayal in your eyes, but he doesn't find it. He finds only the reflection of the Alpha standing behind you. He realizes, finally, that the asset is gone. The calculation has returned a fatal error. The hologram cuts out. There is no goodbye. There is no negotiation. The blue light vanishes, plunging the Great Hall back into the warm, flickering orange of the torchlight. The silence rushes back in, but it isn't empty anymore. It is heavy with the aftermath of the victory. The external world has been severed. The war is over. Jiri doesn't let go. If anything, his grip tightens. He buries his face in the curve of your neck, inhaling deeply, taking the scent of your rejection of them and your acceptance of him. The air pressure in the room drops, the world narrowing down to the heat of his skin and the beat of his heart against yours. There is nothing left to fight. There is only the claim. The blue light vanishes, and the silence that follows is heavier than stone. It is not the silence of a void, but the silence of a decision made absolute. Vaughn is gone. The council is gone. There is only the heat of the man pressing against your back and the rapid, thundering rhythm of your own heart. You do not pull away. Your breath slows, matching his rhythm. The tension drains from your shoulders, your spine softening against his chest. The calculations stop, replaced by the heavy, grounding heat of his skin against yours. He turns you in his arms slowly, effectively shutting out the rest of the Great Hall. His hands slide up to cup your face, his thumbs tracing the line of your jaw, with a reverence that terrifies you more than his violence ever did. It is done, he murmurs, his voice vibrating through your chest. You look up into eyes that have shifted from a winter storm to a consuming golden fire. You stop thinking. You stop holding up the sky. You simply lean into him, your body softening against the hard planes of his chest. For years, you believed that strength meant standing alone, that independence was the only virtue. But as his head lowers, as his breath ghosts over the pulse point of your neck where your collar used to be, you realize the lie. Submission isn't weakness. It is the ultimate luxury of trust. It is the freedom to let someone else be the shield. He closes the distance. The sensation of his teeth grazing your sensitive skin sends a shockwave through your nervous system that shatters the last of your resistance. It is a claim written in nerve endings and blood, a permanent rewriting of your biology. You are not Lyra the Exile anymore. You are not a broken tool of the state to be discarded. You are the heartbeat of the fortress. You are the queen of the Iron Citadel. The snow falls outside the thick glass, a relentless white curtain trying to bury the world in ice. But inside, the fire burns, and the cold cannot touch you here. You chose the monster, and in doing so, you found the only thing the council could never give you: a home. If you would choose the dangerous warmth of the Alpha over the cold safety of the cage, like this video. Subscribe to join the pack. Until the next chapter, follow the scent.